been given an option to choose their GSTR1 to file their GSTR1 quarterly. So already this scheme was there to like where the GSTR1 was filed on a quarterly basis by the registered taxpayer having turnover up to 1.5 crore. But GSTR3B was filed monthly by making the payment of taxes. Now, what is the additional that this scheme is offering that we are going to see this? So, to start with, there are various notifications which came in notification number 81, 82, 84, 85, and also circular number 143 that is being issued with regard to QRMP scheme. So I have summarized whatever is there in this notification and circular, and we'll go one by one. So who is eligible for this scheme? Very important. So a registered person who is required to furnish return in form GSTR3B. That means what? That it has to be a regular taxpayer and not a taxpayer who is under composition scheme. So only a regular taxpayer whose annual is up to 5 crore is eligible to opt this QRMP scheme. So, and who is not eligible? So obviously whose aggregate turnover in the previous financial year has exceeded 5 crore is not eligible. The other person who is already in QRMP scheme and the turnover during the year exceeds 5 crore, he automatically discontinues to be in this scheme. He has to come out of this scheme if during the year at any point of time the turnover crosses 5 crore. Another important point is that who has not filed their 3B, the last 3B before opting for the to opt for this scheme. So these are the three things, three items where the people are not eligible to opt for QRMP scheme. Now, very important point here to note is that the quarterly whatever they have given, it is with regard to return filing, that is GSTR1 and GSTR3B. So this scheme gives you an option to file your GSTR1 and GSTR3B on a quarterly basis. That means 4 returns you will file. But the payment has to be done on a monthly basis. How and what are the provisions we will see. Now, we saw that who is eligible, that person, who registered person whose aggregate turnover, annual turnover for the preceding financial year is up to 5 crore. So now what is this aggregate annual turnover? So this aggregate annual turnover, it will be computed by the common portal based on the GSTR 3B and GSTR 1 that is being filed by the SSC in the preceding financial year. So it is not something that we are computing. So the common portal itself will, calculate this aggregate annual turnover, and if that is below 5 crore, then I am eligible for this scheme. But during the year, to keep a track, I need to also check that at any point of time, if my turnover for that particular year, running year, is crossing 5 crore, I immediately discontinue to be in this QRMP scheme. Now, so what about multi GST for the same PAN? So as I told you, this aggregate annual turnover, we have to see the consolidated turnover for all the GST number that is allotted against the same PAN number. So all GST number allotted against the same PAN number, the consolidated turnover, if it is below 5 crore, then only that person is eligible. So for example, if the turnover of Karnataka GST is 2.5 crore, Andhra Pradesh is 2.5 crore, Tamil Nadu is 1.5 crore, total for 1920 is 6.5 crore. Though the individual turnover of the GSTN is less than 5 crore, since the consolidated turnover is more than 5 crore, none of the branches will be eligible for QRMP. Whereas in example 2, if all the 3 branches put together, turnover is 4.5 crore, which is below 5 crore, then all the branches will be eligible for the QRMP scheme. However, suppose in 2021, if the turnover till December crosses 5.1 crore, even though preceding financial year is less than 5 crore, I will not be eligible for the QRMP scheme. So this is very important. Though my preceding financial year turnover may be less than 5 crore, but if during the year it has crossed 5 crore until December, for the quarter Jan to March, I will not be eligible to opt for the QRMP scheme. So this is the criteria. Now, like if I'm opting for QRMP scheme and I have multiple GSTN number, am I liable to choose the QRMP scheme for all the GSTN number? No, they have clarified that if you are eligible to go for QRMP scheme, it is the option given to the registered taxpayer to choose QRMP for each GST number. So I can go for QRMP for one GST number and I can be regular for another GST number. So there is no compulsion of choosing QRMP for all GST number. So that is being clarified. Now, how do I opt in and when do I opt in or opt out? So they have said that like this scheme can be exercised for each quarter. So I can opt in and opt out in every quarter. So that option is given. Now, what is the time period in which I should opt in and opt out? So for any quarter, if I have to opt in, the time period that is open for me to opt in or opt out is first day of the second month of the previous quarter till the last day of the first month of the current quarter. So that is a little complicated. So let us see this table. So if I have 4 quarters, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So April to June, which is Q1, what is my time period? It is first day of the second month of the previous quarter. That is for Jan to Feb, what is the second month is 1st February. So from 1st February till 30th April, I have the time frame to opt in or opt out. Similarly, for all the other quarters, the time frames are given. So during this period only, the portal will allow me to either opt in for the QRMP scheme or opt out of the QRMP scheme. So it is completely optionable and you can opt in and opt out in each quarter as per the requirement of the assessee or the taxpayers. Now, what about new registrations? Can they opt in at the time of registration? Yes, they can opt in for at the time of registration itself in the QRMP scheme. Now, composition dealers, if they are opting out from the composition dealers to regular taxpayers, how are they going to get this scheme? Are they eligible? So during any quarter, they shall be able to opt any time between again the same time frame. So if a composition dealer opt out from composition to regular, so for the next quarter that same time frame would be applicable to him for him to choose for this particular scheme. So even that composition to regular also is eligible to opt the scheme. Now, registered person are not required to exercise this option every quarter. I told that this option is available for the registered taxpayer every quarter to opt in and opt out. But is it something like I have to do it every quarter? No. So if I have opted in this quarter and I wish to continue to in the same scheme even in the next quarter, I need not opt in again. Only if I want to exercise opt out or opt in, then only I will do it. But if I wish to continue in the same scheme, I need not opt in every quarter. So that has been also clarified. Now, what are the how you are going to migrate into this scheme? So we already know that there was a quarterly return filing scheme was already there for GSTR 1 for turnover up to 1.5 crore. So for Jan 2021 to March 2021, for this quarter, it is going to be applicable, right? So there is a auto migration. So I am sure that a lot of your clients would have already received this automated message and mail where they said that you have been moved to this particular QRMP scheme. Now, how that auto migration has happened? So, for up 1.5 crore turnover who were already filing their GSTR1 in quarterly, they will get auto migrated to quarterly. Up to 1.5 crore where they were monthly filing, they will also get auto migrated to quarterly. And from 1.5 crore to 5 crore, when the system, the common portal computes your aggregate annual turnover, and if it is below 5 crore, then also you are getting auto migrated to quarterly. But for auto migration, there is a condition. Your October 2020 return GSTR 3B should have got filed by 30th November. Mandatory. 2020 in by 30th November 2020. Then only you get auto migrated to this QRMP scheme. Systems computes the eligibility financial year 1920 and 2021. Both it will check what turnover that you have declared, and based on that it will automatically migrate you to the QRMP scheme. Now this default, whatever is being automatically selected by the computer. Now you don't want to go for this scheme. Do I have an option to come out of this default scheme? Yes. So what they have clarified, between 5th December to 31st January 2021, the window will be open. Where if you have by default got migrated to this scheme and you don't want to be into this scheme, you have an option to choose and come out of this scheme into the regular scheme. So they have given this 5th December to 31st January. Now this is for auto migration. Now I have not filed my GSTR 3B of October by 30th November 2020. So I am not getting auto migrated, though my turnover is below 5 crore in the preceding financial year and also in the current financial year. Now how do I choose for the QRMP scheme if I want to? So there is a manual migration option also that is being given for the eligible registered taxpayers. So for a manual migration also, there are some compulsion that is being given. What is that compulsion? Sorry, yeah. So the compulsion is your 3B for December 21, because to exercise this option you have the time only till 31st January 2021. So you should file your return GSTR 3B first, and then only you can opt for this scheme. Okay, so that is very important. Filing of last return GSTR 3B within 31st January to opt for QRMP for Jan 2021 and March 2021. So, but while you're doing this, you need to also check your eligibility. That means your financial year 1920 aggregate turnover should be below 5 crore, and 2021 till December also below 5 crore. Then only you are eligible for this scheme. So I have put an example here where 1920 turnover is 4.75 crore and 2021 till December is 4 crore. But I have not filed my December 2023B by Jan 31st, 2021. Can I opt in manually? No, system will not allow. Not eligible for QRMP scheme for the quarter Jan to March 2021. But I will again become eligible based on this criteria for the next quarter, that is April to June, if I again file my previous GSTR 3B within the time due date. So filing of GSTR 3B of last month is very important for opting for QRMP scheme when you are moving from regular scheme to this particular scheme. Okay, so that's very important. So this is about the migration and the opting in for QRMP for this quarter. Now I have put some examples here, so let us just go through them. So aggregate turnover for financial year 2021 is 4.75 crore, like till December. Eligible to opt for QR21. So for the entire 2021, this is our hypothetical examples. So for entire 2021, my turnover was 4.75 crore. So for April to June quarter, I am eligible to go for QRMP. Now what happens? Now aggregate turnover for 2021 till August. So now when I come to August, it becomes 5.5 crore. So which is like exceeding 5 crore in August 2021. So though I'll be eligible for QRMP for July to September, but since in August it crossed 5 crore, for the next quarter, that is October to December, I becomes not eligible and I have to opt out to the monthly scheme. So that is very important to keep checking every quarter actually whether I am still eligible, whether my aggregate annual turnover for the current financial year is also within 5 crore or not. So that need to be checked. Aggregate turnover for 1920 is 4.5 crore and 2021 till December is 4 crore. Now registered payer can opt for QRMP for the quarter Jan to March based on the criteria he is eligible. Now to opt out, now he got auto migrated Jan to March, he filed the QRMP scheme. Now for next quarter, that is April to June, he wants to opt out. Can he opt out? Yes. What is the timeline? From May 1st, on May 1st, I know what is my timeline is again from February 1st to May 31st, I have the timeline to opt out for April to June quarter. Now on May 1st, 2021, can opt out on last day for, can he opt out? So he realized on May 1st, 2021 that no, for April to June quarter, I don't want to be in Qrmp scheme. Can he opt out? So let us go back to that table. So for April to June quarter, what is my timetable? Is 1st February to 30th April. When did he realize? He realized on May 1st. So he cannot opt out of the QRMP scheme for April to June quarter, because he should have, if he wanted to, he should have done it by April 30, 2021. So we have to be very careful on these timelines, that otherwise you have to continue filing in the QRMP scheme only if you do not opt out and if you wish to opt out. Now, this is one very important thing, invoice furnishing facility. So we all knew that when this quarterly filing of GSTR 1 was notified, and people opted for it, like turnover below 1.5 crore, most of us was having this problem of ITC reconciliation, because they would file their returns quarterly and it would appear in my 2A only quarterly. So even though I would have taken the input, taken the goods and paid the amount also, but not eligible to take input tax credit because it is not appearing in 2A. After all this 36(4) and all this became effective, so it was a very problematic for everyone. So we have to wait for 3 months, and then when it appears in 2A, and then take the credit. So to avoid that, so because a person who is opting for QRMP scheme, he is filing his 1 and 3B quarterly. But 2B, it would, the people to whom they are actually selling the goods or services, they would, the counterparty would take the input tax credit on a monthly basis. So this invoice furnishing facility, it is being provided for the QRMP registered taxpayer to provide their B2B sales details on a monthly basis, so that the counterparty can take the input tax credit based on the invoices furnished in the invoice furnishing facility. So it is a form where you are going to only declare your B2B sales, and up to 50 lakhs per month for the first and the second month of the quarter. So that means for every quarter, for the first and second month, along with payment of taxes, you are also uploading or declaring your B2B sales in the invoice furnishing facility. Now, whether it is mandatory? No, it is not mandatory. It is optional for the taxpayer to choose and furnish the B2B sales details in the invoice furnishing facility. Whether it is only B2B or all the turnover? No. The facility gives you the option to declare only B2B sales. B2C sales you have to declare in your quarterly GSTR 3B only. Now what they are telling, whatever details that you are furnishing in your this invoice furnishing facility will get auto populated in your GSTR 1 when you are filing it quarterly on the last month of the quarter. So invoice furnishing facility B2B invoice gets populated in GSTR 1, and you provide your B2C details for the 3 months and you file your GSTR 1 return. But very, very important, this is an optional. This is not mandatory. Okay. So this is about the invoice furnishing facility, additional tool. Now it has been made, already launched in the website. It is available in the common portal. Now, what about payment of taxes? So as I told you in the beginning that the return filings are quarterly, but the payment of taxes are monthly. Now, how am I going to pay payment? So there is a PMT06 challan that is provided for this purpose to make the payment. When do we have to make the payment? For each month, for 25th of the succeeding month, I need to make the tax payment by using PMT06. So while I'm making this PMT06 payment, I need to selecting the challan. So that is the option that need to be selected. Now, this PMT06, I'm going to pay the amounts only for the first 2 months of the quarter. So PMT06, I am filing only for the first 2 months. When I am filing GSTR 3B, it is the normal procedure that we follow for the for now. The same challan need to be generated and paid the taxes, if any, additional. So PMT06, I am only doing for the first 2 months of the quarter. Now, how am I going to make this payment? What is the basis of tax payment? So they have given two methods. One is fixed sum method, another is self-assessment method. Now, what is fixed sum method? It is telling that a quarterly return payment scheme registered taxpayer, if he wish to that, I wish to go for fixed sum method, what he has to do, whatever is the previous quarter tax paid, 35% of the tax amount you pay in the first 2 month of the quarter, 35%. If only if the previous quarter is filed under Qrmp. But the previous quarter, if you are not in Qrmp, from regular you have moved to Qrmp, so you would have filed your GSTR 3B for the last month of the quarter. So in that case, you have to pay 100% of the last month tax, whatever in the 3B in Qrmp. So we will see the implications later. So for example, like until December, everybody would be filing their GSTR 3B monthly. So if a person is opting for Qrmp for Jan to March quarter, and he opts to go for fixed sum method, what is the percentage of tax that he need to remit? It is 100% of the last GSTR 3, because it is monthly and not 35%. So please be mindful. So if you are opting for fixed sum method, it will be 100% of the tax payment of the last month that need to be remitted in the first 2 months of the quarter of Jan to March 2021. Now, to choose this fixed sum method, this provision is not available for 3 categories of taxpayers. It is being given in the FAQ which released by the GSTN. So they said new taxpayers cannot opt for this fixed sum method. They have to go for the another self-assessment method. Then taxpayer who opted out of composition scheme. So even first quarter, you cannot go for this scheme. You have to go for self-assessment method only when you're opting out from composition to regular, because composition dealer would have paid taxes on a different method altogether. So you cannot go for this method. And those who have not filed their last GSTR 3B also will not be able to go for this fixed sum method. Now, what is the other method? Is the self-assessment method. Self-assessment method is nothing but what we are doing exactly to file GSTR 3B now on a monthly basis. You have to do the same exercise. Calculate your outward tax liabilities, calculate your eligible input tax credit, calculate your outward tax payment on your inward RCM liability on your inward supplies, and then compute your actual tax liability, and if there is any cash payout, you pay that through the PMT 06. So exactly what we are doing for GSTR 3B filing, we have to do the entire exercise and pay the self-assessment method. Now what they've clarified, if you have already some balance lying in your electronic credit ledger and cash balances which is adequate enough to adjust the payment that is due for that month when you're doing the self-assessment method, you need not pay the taxes again. Or if you have nil tax liability, you do not have any sales or anything during that month of the quarter, then also you need not pay the taxes if you're going for the self-assessment method. But in fixed sum method, even though if you have nil liability in a month, and you have to pay it 35 based on the previous quarter. Okay, so please be careful. Now what is important here, the register payer is free to avail either of the 2 tax method in any of the 2 months. So it is up to you which method you want to choose to pay tax in the particular month of the quarter. Okay, now whatever sum you're depositing in your cash ledger through PMT 06 cannot be utilized against any other payment until it is being utilized in GSTR 3B payment for that particular quarter. Only after utilizing against the liability of GSTR 3B of the particular quarter, if any amount is left out, you can go for a refund if it was paid excess. Otherwise, that amount cannot be utilized against anything else, whatever you are depositing through PMT 06. So this is about the payment of taxes. Now let us see some examples. So the last return filed was on a quarterly basis. So as I said, for the quarter ending March 2021. So I have opted for Qrmp scheme for Jan to March. So I would have paid on a quarterly basis, and I would have filed my GSTR 3B also quarterly. Now for the next quarter, Okay, how the tax need to be paid. So if you see here, in tax paid in cash in quarter, in the quarter Jan to March, so it is tax paid in cash. Okay, CGST 100, SGST 100, IGST 1000, cess 200. Now for April to June quarter, for the first 2 months, that is April 2021 and May 2021, if I am opting for fixed sum method, how much tax that I need to pay through PMT 06? It is 35% of the total taxes paid in the previous quarter. So that is 35 of 100 CGST, SGST 35, IGST 350, cess 70. Each month of the first, like you have to make this payment in each of the month of the quarter, April to June. So April and May you will make this payment. June you will file your GSTR 3B, and whatever is the remaining amount you will make that payment. Okay, so this is for the fixed sum method. Now the previous month return is filed monthly. Like as I said, December everybody would have filed monthly GSTR 3B. Now you are opting for QRMP for Jan to March. Now what is the amount that we need to pay? So here in this case, it is the example is like you have opted for QRMP April to May 2021. So March you have filed your monthly GSTR 3B. So March you remitted taxes of CGST, SGST, IGST of 100, 100, 100, 200. Now for April and May, how much tax need to be paid? Because the previous month it was monthly GSTR 3B, I need to pay 100% of the taxes paid in GSTR 3B of the previous month. So it is 100, 100, 100, 200. So I need to pay. So if I'm opting for fixed sum method. Now, similar cases, if I go for self-assessment method, as I told you, it is self-assessment method is very simple. Very important one point I missed out telling in this fixed sum method. So if you are opting for fixed sum method, the challan would get auto-generated by the system. You need not fill in any details. The system common portal itself will calculate the challan for you based on the returns and the taxes that is being paid in the previous quarter and the month. So in this case, you need not do any other exercise apart from paying whatever the challan is coming and pay it. But there are some issues with that which we will discuss later. So in self-assessment method, you are basically recording your outward tax liabilities, you're seeing your eligible ITC, and your outward tax liability on RCM inward supplies, everything you're seeing, and then you are making the cash payment after taking the input tax credit and etc. So you are making that payment. Now here there is an issue again, which we'll take it later. So this is how is being described, that this is how it is going to work when we are choosing for self-assessment method. Now return filing, what are the dates for return filing? So as I told you, quarterly filing of GSTR 3B. So for each quarter I need to file it by 22nd or 24th based on the states. So we know there are two categories of states, north and south. So for us it is 22nd. So by every quarter, the next succeeding month by 22nd, I should file my GSTR 3B. GSTR 1 by 13th of the following, the following the quarter, the 13th of the month, succeeding month, I need to file my GSTR 1. For IFF, I told you, for invoice furnishing facility, for the first 2 months of the quarter, it will be by again. So here is the date for that. I need to file it by 13th of the following month for the first 2 quarters for IFF. And for the offsetting of the payments, what we are doing in the first 2 months for the by the PMT 06, it has to be done. It has to be offset solely against the tax liability of GSTR 3B, which I am filing for that quarter. And if there is any amount that is paid excess and it is left in the cash ledger after filing the 3B, I can opt for a refund of that particular amount or continue to utilize it for the next quarter. So this is what is the return filing due dates under that. Now, what about interest? So we all know that previously we had an interest calculation. So it is being clarified that the interest need to be paid on the net tax liability, only on the cash payments, right? They have clarified it. And it was from the now how are it's going to affect in the QRMP scheme under these 2 methods, that is fixed sum method and self-assessment. There's a little difference here. So in fixed sum method, in the first table, if you see tax liability, it is pre-filled PMT06. I told the portal will auto calculate, pre-filled form will come. If it is paid by 25th, so PMT06 due date is 25th. So if I pay that amount by 25th, my interest liability will be nil for when I'm filing my GSTR 3B. Now, if this PMT06 is not paid by 25th of the following month, then 18% of the tax liability from 26th till the date it is being paid. Now, important thing, since system is auto calculating this tax liability, now when I'm filing my GSTR 3B for the in the last month of the quarter, even though my tax liability for the first 2 months, if it is more than what I have actually paid, since it is a fixed sum method and I paid the taxes based on actual liability, if it is more, I will not be liable for any interest for that short payment of taxes in the first 2 months. Very important this is. But in self-assessment method, I will be liable to pay tax if in the first 2 months there is any short payment of taxes. So very important here, this point which we will see with an example. So the final tax liability for the first 2 months, if it is higher, as I told you, than the tax paid through pre-filled P, and such liability has not been paid within quarterly. But when I'm filing the 3B, and my liability, what actually need to be paid, is more than what is paid, so I need to pay that within the due date of the GSTR 3B filing, that is 22nd of the succeeding month of the quarter. So if I do not pay that remaining liability by 22nd, then again my interest liability would start from 23rd onwards at the rate of 18%. So from GSTR 3B due date till the date I make the payment. So very important difference here. So we'll see it with an example so that it is clear to everyone. So first I am telling fixed sum method. So suppose if it was previous month quarterly or previous month monthly. So you can see tax paid in cash from Jan to March is 100, 100, 100. Tax required that need to be paid for April to April and May. That is 35% of the previous quarter. So 35, 35, 35. Now actual, but when I'm doing my return filing, GSTR 3B filing in April, so I will basically account all my liabilities, and then I find that my actual liability for the first 2 months, that is April and May, was 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. But how much I paid? I paid only 35, 35. So I short paid 5 CGST, 5 SGST, 5 IGST. Though I have short pay taxes for the first 2 months, but because I have chosen for fixed sum method and the taxes has been paid based on pre-filled challan, I will not be liable for any additional interest at the rate of 18% on that short paid amount of 5 CGST, 5 SGST and 5 IGST. Okay, so that is very important. But in the same case, if it is a self-assessment method, so if you see here, cash to be deposited, actual cash that I should have deposited by calculating my tax liability was 50, 50, 50. But what I have deposited by PMT06 is only 45, 40, 40. So differential 5, 10 and 10. So on this difference, I need to pay 18% tax. So though only in case of self-assessment method, if my actual tax liability for the first 2 months, if it is more than what I have paid by PMT06, I need to discharge interest on the differential amount. So we have to be very careful when we are opting for these methods, and we need to do an assessment before choosing this scheme. We need to do this assessment for each and every client separately and see that whether this QRMP scheme is going to be beneficial for the client, because at the end it should not so happen that we end up paying on penalties and interest just to opt for the QRMP scheme. Okay, so that is very important over here. So this is both, so we saw the interest that is liable to be paid if there is any short payment on the first 2 months of the quarter. Now this particular slide, it is applicable for both the methods if you choose. So what is that? So actual tax for the quarter was IGST 50, CGST 50, SGST 50. month 1 and 2 I have paid totally put together 45, 40, 40. Now the remaining difference I need to pay while filing the 3B. Now if I do not file my 3B within the due date, which is 22nd of the following month of the quarter, so then from that date it will be calculated, and it will be so if the return, suppose in this example I said that the return was filed after 1 week from the due date, so 18% interest will be applicable on the differential amount for that 1 week time of delay. So that's very important. Now, what about late fee? How is the late fee going to be applicable? So they have clarified that, if the GST, if the PMT06 is filed late, that is after 25th also, there will be no late fee on the late filing of the PMT06. But however, if the GSTR 3B is not filed within the due date, there will be late fee subject to a minimum of 5,000. So the late fee will not cross 5,000 rupees. So if you see here, if you have a liability, then the late fees are 25, 25, 50. And if there is nil liability, it is 10, 10 and 20 as per the acts. So this is what is about the late fee. So with this, the compliance calendar we already saw that, for month 1 and month 2, I have IFF to fill in by 13th and PMT06 to be filled in by 25th. And month 3, I have to file GSTR 1 by 13th and 22nd 3B, 24th 3B. So this is the monthly compliance date or quarterly compliance date for the QRMP scheme. Now with this, I finish this. Now I will move on to the issues. So since I finished the QRMP, we will take the questions on QRMP and then I will go to the next this thing. I saw there are some questions are there. So let me just have a look at that questions. 1 second. I cannot see that. Where is the questions? Okay, you got it. From one member, if a dealer made an interstate sale in the previous quarter and now he is not expecting interstate sale in this quarter, then is it compulsory to deposit 35% of the IGST paid in the previous quarter? So good question. So as I'm discussing this issue, we will be able to address this question actually. Okay, so let me go to the my issues list, and then we will be able to see that whether this question gets answered there or not. So I hope everybody got the question. So what he has asked is, in the previous quarter, I had an interstate sale and then I had paid IGST. But during the quarter, I do not have any interstate sale. So if I do, I still have to pay 30 some method if I am selecting. So let us see the issues. So first issues is with related to invoice furnishing facility. So as I was mentioned that this particular facility is being provided to these QRMP taxpayers and it is optional, it is not mandatory. So why this particular facility was provided? So that we can avoid this problem of input tax credit mismatch in the 2A, which like gets delayed by 3 months. But since they have made it optional, it's still, the problem still persists. So if people choose to go for not file this invoice furnishing facilities, it becomes again the same problem. I cannot claim the credits. It will not appear in my 2A, and I have to wait for 3 months for it to get appeared in my 2A and claim. Now again 2B is also there. So I have to, it is GSTR 3B eligible credit is auto populated based on my 2B file. So that again, keeps that issue open. So it's in IFF, then my problem of input tax credits remains the same. Then there is a restriction that you can only upload up to 50 lakh of invoices per month, worth 50 lakh. So we have to see how does that work. then I can upload only my B2B taxable supply. There is no option to upload my zero rated supply. So my zero rated supply I am only uploading in my GSTR1 of the when I'm filing my quarterly GSTR1. So in that case, there will be a delay in the IGST refund claim. So people who basically have zero rated supply, so they wherever they have imports, they get the IGST refund, or if they have opted for payment of IGST, and so they get that refund based on their GSTR1 filed. So there will be again a delay in the IGST refund claim. Then no provision of amendment. So as of now, whatever the instructions that they have given for filing IFF, they have not mentioned that there will be any amendment option that will be provided in the IFF. So we already know while filing GSTR1, there will be so many mistakes. I would have wrongly uploaded it to another GST number, or I have chosen a wrong tax percentage. So while filing this IFF, if I have done the same mistake, whether the portal is going to give me to option to amend, it is silent. We do not know. We have to see. And if it does not provide me an option to amend the wrong details, so that means what? For the first 2 months, whatever I am providing details in IFF, it is getting auto-populated in GSTR1. So I do not know whether my GSTR1 will allow me to amend it there, or it will be only after the GSTR1 of that particular quarter filed, only next quarter I am getting to amend the wrongly filed invoices. So you can see there will be a gap of 6 months for amendment if I am filing any one more problem over here with this invoice furnishing facility. Now coming to the payment. So as sir rightly mentioned in the question, if I do not have IGST sales in this quarter, do I still have to pay? So if I'm opting for fixed sum method, yes, the system is going to give you an auto drafted challan where I cannot go and edit. So we have to see whether it will, it will calculate and it will give me IGST. So I have to be mindful there again, whether I go for fixed sum or self-assessment. So work is increasing, work is not reducing. Every month I need to, though it is QRMP, it is really not reducing the compliance at all for any of the dealer. Okay, so if I go by the instructions and the provisions that is given, yes, if I'm choosing fixed sum method, my system will give me even IGST payment of 35% based on the previous quarter. So you can see here I have mentioned that, and also as I told you, for this particular quarter, Jan to March 2021, if you are choosing fixed sum method, you need to pay taxes paid for GSTR 3B filing for December 2020, and it will be 100% and not 35%. 35% will be applicable only from next April quarter onwards. It will not be applicable for anyone for Jan to March quarter. That's very important. Then another point, that in the preceding month only CGST, SGST is paid in cash, and for QRMP first month the payment is required to be done in IGST. What would be the auto-generated challan in the portal? Will it generate IGST? Can I do an edit there? So see, we have an option that the credits can be utilized again to get utilized when we are filing by PMT0. So those things that we need to check. There's a question at ma'am service provided. Oh, am I not audible? Was there any break? I can repeat that.
Only some lag sometimes. No issue, madam. Please continue.
Okay. Okay. Then another problem, as I was mentioning, so there was a point where I mentioned that if you have enough balance in your credit ledger, then you need not pay the taxes. Now when I'm choosing this self-assessment method, so what am I doing? I am seeing that what is my tax liability, outward liability, what is my eligible ITC, and then what is my tax payment. Now be very mindful here. Only when I claim the input tax credit in my 3B, it gets credited to my credit ledger. Now here in this QRMP scheme, I am filing my return only 3B when only at the last month of the quarter. Then how it is getting that credit ITC credit? It is not at all there in my credit ledger when I'm doing this self assessment for the first 2 quarters. So those clarification has to come from the department. Tomorrow the department should not say that, oh, for the first 2 months your credit ledger does not show this balance, how did you claim this credit while making the ITC payment for the first 2 months. So those problems need to be addressed, and those further clarification has to come from the government. So this is with regard to payments. Then next was compliance. As I was mentioning, is it actually reducing the compliance? If you see GSTR, it was monthly, it is quarterly. PMT06, I need to do monthly. So number of returns are getting actually more, not reduced. And also in this case, there will be more, notices that might come, because department will start now monitoring the non-payment of PMT06 also. So if I have not paid the PMT06, I may get again, notices for non-payment of PMT06. So those kind of problem persists in this particular scheme. So with this, I conclude the QRMP scheme. So I will move on to the next slides, which is with regard to the different other notifications, which makes a lot of changes that are applicable from 1st January 2021. So let us go through them. So we are going to talk about the restriction on payment of taxes through ITC, the new rule that is being notified, 86B. Then we are going to talk about certain amendments in UA bill verification restriction as per Rule 36(4). And then we will see a restriction on filing of returns. There are some restrictions that is being posed. And we will see amendment with regard to registration and cancellation. And we will see lastly some new sections that is being notified by Finance Act 2020. So these are the things we are going to see in next few slides. So Rule 86B, I think this rule, when it came, it was a big buzz everywhere that, okay, what is going to happen? Like you have to pay, you are being restricted to pay your taxes, utilizing your input tax credit only to the extent of 99%. That means 1% you have to pay by cash. So first thing, the positive side for the taxpayers where their monthly turnover exceeds 50 lakhs. So I am sure that the number of taxpayers that will come under this rule will be very less. It is not going to affect everyone. But on the negative side, see, this particular rule, the Act does not provide for any such restrictions. This restriction has been imposed through a rule. So how it is legally viable, we need to see that. There will be a lot of litigations on this case. And the another negative point is, okay, fine, it is applicable only to the taxpayers whose turnover for monthly turnover is more than 50 lakh. But today we are saying that it is only applicable to them. Tomorrow you never know. The government may make it applicable for everyone. So an amendment, and they might make the turnover less. So it is an alarming kind of rule that has been introduced, where it is basically forcing the taxpayer to pay 1% of their liability by cash, even though if you have enough input tax credit, in your ledger, in your credit ledger. Now, this particular rule is applicable from 1st January 2021. So this is an additional task for us, where we have to keep checking the more than 50 lakh in that particular month, and whether I have to pay 1% by cash. And also, what is the additional point they mentioned is that this 1% tax liability we need to check on cumulative basis. So suppose, just for an example, if I have paid by my cash ledger in the previous month, and during this month I have enough credit balance to pay my tax liability. So if on a cumulative basis I have paid 1% of my tax liability, until that date by cash, I need not go, I will not get covered by this rule. Only if my outlay is less than 1% on a cumulative basis, then I have to pay taxes by cash ledger, and it will restrict me through this rule. So there's a lot of calculations involved over here, where we need to check on a monthly basis whether I am cumulatively, I have paid 1% of my tax payability on in cash or not. Now they have given some exemptions here. So very important, see how they are kind of bringing in income tax and GS and indirect tax together. So now we all know, like, even in 26 AS also my GST details are appearing. I'll give you some very practical examples which I encountered in couple of days while filing income tax returns. So as tax professionals, we often encounter situations where we may be filing GST return for one client and filing income tax returns for one client. The clients are also very clever. They will go for GST return filing to one set of tax professional, and for income tax return filing they'll go to someone else. Now previously, for the income tax professional, it was very difficult to know what he has done in his other GST return tax filing, if until that person comes and discloses it to you. Similarly, the person who is filing the GST returns would not know what he has done in income tax filing unless that person discloses. So in one of my client case, that client has no other income. There's nothing in the, he has only agriculture. He is an agriculturist. Okay, so we have filed his return in the previous year, and that previous year only agricultural income has been disclosed. Now the thing is, like, he has never disclosed that he has taken a GST registration. Now this year when I go to file his return and I download the 26 A's, I find that there is GST 3B filed, nil return has been filed. And when I asked that person, then he said, yes, for APMC license, I had taken the GST registration. However, I have filed GST nil return. Now, in this particular income tax return, he also declares, sometimes they'll say, no, I have got some rental income. Please declare this as rental income. I have this, some other income, some contract income. If from 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs, you declare. Since it is below 20 lakh, so GST is not applicable. But if that person is taken GST registration number, even 1 rupee tag, any other income also will be liable to GST. So now when I ask this person, then he says, yeah, I have taken for APMC license. But he has never disclosed. He has been filing his GST return from someone in the APMC year. So you can see the complications here. Like now, if I declare rental income, he has not declared those rental income while filing his monthly GST return. So how the income tax department and GST department is getting combined, and like they're pulling the details from both the sources. And if how we have to be very careful as tax professionals, we cannot restrict ourselves only to the returns that I am filing. I need to also ensure that what are the other things that the client has done. It is also now the 26 AS is giving also the details of the cash deposits that is being done by that assessee in the banks. Everything is coming in the 26 A's. So it is making the scope very high. So this rule 86B is also another point of, where the Income Tax Act and the GST Act is working together. So what are these exceptions they're telling? One of the exception is that if the taxpayer has paid income tax more than rupees 1 lakh into preceding financial year, then he is not liable to pay taxes per 86B. So if I have paid 1 lakh income tax, I did not go for 1% tax payment. 86B is not applicable. Then what is the another one is telling? If taxpayer has received refund amount of more than 1 lakh in the preceding financial year because of on account of unutilized input tax credit against export without payment of tax or inverted duty structure. So under this two scheme, if he has got refund of more than 1 lakh rupees, again he is exempted under this rule 86B. Then taxpayer has discharged output tax liability through cash ledger for an amount of in excess of 1% on a cumulative basis. As I was telling you, if in a cumulative basis he has paid 1%, even though in one particular month he is more tax credits are there, he can utilize it as it on a cumulative he has paid more than 1%. And they have listed others registered person like government department, public sector units, local authority and statutory bodies who are not eligible or who are not covered under this particular rule 86B. So this is very alarming for all of us to make sure, like both the GST filing and the income tax return filing goes hand in hand. Otherwise, it is going to create a lot of, mismatches and litigation issues, even for small clients also. So this is one rule 86B. Then coming to the amendment to the UA bill provision. So the first amendment that is being done was with regard to this UA bill. One day was permit. Now this kilometer has been extended to increased to 200 kilometer for 1st January 2021. So the UA bill validity is for 200 kilometer, and again for the every additional day it is 200 kilometer. Then they have also done some amendment in Rule 138E, which is with regard to a reason for blockage of UA bill facilities. So these are the additional grounds that is being provided now in Rule 138E, with which they can block the UA bill facility. Just one moment. There's some chat. It can be output tax. Is it net liability? Yes, it is net liability. 86B output tax, it is a net liability. So that is the answer for that. So what is this additional reason for blockage of UA bill facility? So a person whose registration has been deemed to be suspended, or submission for, if he has submitted an application for cancellations under Rule 21, then there is a possibility that the UA bill facility might get blocked. Or under this is to Rule 21A2 and 21A2A sub rule. So these are new rule which you will see in cancellation of registration. If the under two categories, if the proper officer has believed that the registration need to be cancelled, he can also block the UA bill facility as well. The third point is, we already know that if a person has not filed his GSTR 3B returns for consecutive 2 periods, automatically either UA bill facility gets blocked. Now, since the QRMP scheme has been brought into place, so this 2 months they have changed the words. They have replaced the words 2 months to 2 tax periods. That means for QRMP scheme it will be for 2 quarters. For normal taxpayer it will be 2 months. So 2 months has been replaced by 2 tax periods. So wherever you are not filing your returns for consecutive 2 tax periods, your UA bill might get blocked. So that is with regard to UA bill amendment. Then Rule 36(4). So now we know that now it is only 5%. So this restriction on availment of ITC, it's now reduced from 10%, whatever your eligible input tax, plus 5% of the such eligible. So it is restricted to 105%. So the alarming thing over here is that, see this, it was 10%, it is reduced to 5%. So it is a very clear indication that maybe next notification they will make it to 0%. So whatever is appearing, only that much credit is available. So those are the kind of alarming situation with this changing notifications which is coming every 6 months. Then a restriction with regard to filing of return. So following are the taxpayers has been restricted for. So GSTR 1 you will not be able to file if you have not filed your GSTR 3B for preceding 2 months. They have actually made this applicable from 1/1/2021. There's a notification came on for 1st January, notification number 1 of 2021, where they have said that if the 3B of 2 months are not filed, then you are not eligible to file your GSTR 1. You will not be able to file. Similarly, for QRMP scheme, if you have not filed GSTR 3B for consecutive for the previous quarter, so tax period required to furnish 3B of previous quarter and has not filed, so then he will not be able to file their GSTR 1. And people who are under 86 gets covered under 86B and has not remitted the 1% through cash. Even for them also, if they have not filed their GSTR 3B, because they had to pay 1% by cash and they have not paid, even for them also GSTR 1 will get restricted. They will not be able to file their GSTR 1. So this is the restriction on filing of returns that is being made effective. Now there are some amendments with respect to registration. So application for registrations, what are the amendments? So basically now all applicants will mandatorily be required to undergo biometric based Aadhaar authentication, and taking of photograph of KYC norm of all those things to are there, but over and above that they have to do this biometric based Aadhaar authentication that need to be done as part of KYC document verification. There is another amendment which they have done in Rule 9(1), in which basically it is nothing but previously it was 3 days, working days. The proper officer need to grant the registration within 3 working days. So now they have extended that 3 working days to 7 working days. And the other provision was that where there was no other authentication was available, or the proper officer used to raise some kind of defects or additional documentation or subject to physical verification deficiency if they used to raise, then proper officer could issue a notice for deficiency within 21 days. So that 21 working days again has been increased to 30 working days. So these are the number of days that has been increased in both of these cases. Then another was with regard to application and approval, as I already mentioned, 3 working days to 7 working days, and with relation to this other authentication, it is from 21 days to 30 days. So this is the rule, and this is in the table I have put for your better understanding. So this is with regard to registration, they have done the changes. Now with regard to cancellation of registrations, what are the different changes that they have done? So Rule 21 usually gives us the grounds for cancellation of registration. So now with this notification, they have added additional grounds for cancellation of registration. So what are those additional grounds? If the proper officer found that the registered payer does not conduct any business from the declared place of business. So you have given a place of business, and if the proper officer find out that the business has not been conducted from that place of business, then there is every chance that they might cancel your registration. What is the second additional ground? Issue invoice or bill without supply of goods or services. So in that case, they can cancel the registration. Or you violates any provisions of section 171. So section 171 is with regard to passing of benefit of input tax credit. So if there is a you have an input tax credit benefit and you have to pass it on based on the reduction in the prices, and if you have not done that, then in that case also, if you violate such provisions, then also the proper officer can have the additional ground to cancel your registration. Then if you have availed credit in violation of section 16, that is you have not met those four provisions, the subsections which are there, the requirement for claim of input tax credit. Then fifth is furnishes the details of outward supply. So this is very important. Please everyone make a note of this. So we were getting notices for mismatch in GSTR 1 and 3B. Like, okay, in your GSTR 1 this much turnover is declared, in your 3B this much turnover is declared, there is a mismatch. Now they can also now the proper officer has been given the rights to cancel registration based on mismatch of GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. So if there is any kind of excess outward supply is declared by him in 3B, but in GSTR 1 it is less, then the proper officer can go ahead and cancel your registration. So this is a very alarming kind of changes that is being done. Or if they violate any provision of Rule 86B, that is that 99% restriction. So these are the additional grounds that they have added for cancellation of registration. Now there is this additional rule which they have inserted, which I told you with regard to GST mismatch, new sub rule 2A has been inserted, where comparison of details furnished in GSTR 3B could be taken place with outward supplies furnished in GSTR 1, and also they can do a comparison of inward supplies that is being claimed in the 3B and what is appearing in your 2B. So all these days we were getting only notices for these mismatches. Now they can go ahead and cancel your registration. And please mind it, please read rule 21A. What are they telling? Where the proper officers has reason to believe that the registration of a person is liable to be cancelled under section 29 or under rule 21, this 2A, he may suspend the registration without affording the said person a reasonable opportunity of being heard. So the officer has been given a right to cancel the registration without giving an opportunity of being heard, which is a very draconian section that is being power that is being given. So we have to see that how the officers are going to utilize this, and they show like it should be, it should not be like in each and every case they use this power. It should be discretionary. So we have to see how this is going to affect our clients, for the because there will be many genuine cases where there may be a difference between 1 and 3B in my outward supply. So if such genuine cases, if they do not give an opportunity of being heard, then it is going to create a lot of problems and lot of litigations going forward. So this is a very important change that has come in. Then suspension of registration. So as I told you, for the similar reasons, they can also suspend your registration where there is a mismatch in 1 and 3B in outward supply and your input tax credit. No opportunity of being heard. New form they have launched called GST REG 31, which is an intimation of suspension or notice for cancellation under this particular section. And during the period where the registration is suspended, the registered person will not be granted any refund also. And proper officer is only allowed to revoke suspension uh, if he is satisfied to do so during the pendency of proceedings of cancellation. So these are the changes that is being brought in with this notification with respect to cancellation of registrations. So these are all effective from 1st January 2021. So now let us just see couple of amendments to the sections that has been CGST Act that has been brought in by the Finance Act 2020. So the first is time limit for availing ITC. So I'll just explain this. So this is with regard to debit notes. So we all knew that whenever a debit note is issued against a invoice, so the input tax credit on the debit note, the eligibility to avail that credit was 20th of the following financial year from the date of the relevant invoice was raised. From that particular financial year, the invoice was raised. But now they have said that after from January 1, 2021, you will be eligible to take the input tax credit until 20th of the financial year subsequent to the financial year in which debit note is raised. So before it was relevant invoice was raised, now it is debit note is raised. So from the financial year, the debit note is raised. So this is a huge relief that is being given, because there are many cases where the debit notes were raised beyond that 20th of the following financial year of the invoice, and we were not able to claim those credits. Now we will be able to claim the credit. So just an example. So pre-amendment, the date of tax invoice was December 24th. Date of debit note was September 24, 2019. So my last date was October 20, 2019, which is from the financial year of tax invoice. That is to 18, it was in 2018. So I will be able to claim only until October 20, 2019. Now, but post amendment, you can see that date of tax invoice is January 24, 2021. Date of debit note is September 24, 2021. So now this 20th of following financial year or the subsequent financial year will get calculated from the financial year in which debit note is raised. So I have time till October 20, 2022 to claim the ITC on the debit note. So it is a huge relief for all the taxpayers, where we were missing on a lot of input tax credits because of this restriction on the input tax credit claim over the time period. So this has been relaxed through this. So from 1st January, we will be able to take the benefit of this particular change. Then, as I told you, cancellation of so this is from 1st January. So taxpayers who have obtained GST registration on a voluntary basis. So previously, if a particular registered taxpayer had obtained a registration on a voluntary basis, they were not eligible to file an application for cancellation until unless they discontinue their business. But now they will be able to apply for cancellation of registration if they want to opt out of GST regime, because they are not compulsory registrations, like they does not cross the taxable limit, etc. So from 1 January to 2021, you can go for such cancellations. The applications will be available. Then with regard to cancellations, so now taxpayers are required to file an application for revocation of cancellation of registration within 30 days from the date of service of cancellation order. So this was till December 31st. Now from 1st January, additional commissioner or joint commissioner will now be empowered to grant an extension of 30 days. So if the AC or the JC feels that it deems fit to extend the date or extend the timeline, they can do an extension of additional 30 days for in filing of application of for revocation of cancellation of registration. So this is, but they should have sufficient cause to believe that the taxpayer should be granted such extension. So the AC and JC has the power given. Next is with regard to tax deduction at source. So the deductor previously was liable to pay 100 rupees per day as late filing fee in case it failed to furnish the TDS certificate to the deductee within 5 days of remitting the tax deducted. So the TDS certificate need to be issued by the government to the deductee. So the such penalty was there, 100 rupees per day, and it had a ceiling of 5,000. Now that provision has been deleted. So that means if now the taxpayer does not receive the TDS certificate and the government makes a delay also, there is no provision of late fee to the government, and it makes more difficult for the assessee to receive such certificates from the department. So it is in favor of the government departments, but it is definitely going to create a lot of problems for the contractors, especially the contractors who need to obtain this TDS certificate from the government department, because based on that only they will be able to claim the TDS GST deducted in their cash ledger for filing their returns. So that's how it is going to have an effect. The last one, penalty and punishment. So previously all the penalty and punishment clauses were only restricted to the person who has committed the offense. But now with change in the provisions, this penalty and imprisonment provision will also get applicable to the person who has caused to commit such offense and retains the benefit of arising from it. So this particular change has been brought in only with respect to the different kind of GST department with regard to input fake invoices, fake input tax credit claims. So there are many people involved in doing this fake series of invoices rather than the person who is actually committed the offenses. So even those person also will get covered under this penalty and imprisonment clause, and it will be applicable to them also from 1st January 2021. So with this, I end the discussion on these slides and the provisions. I am open to now discuss all the points that members have, and we can have an open forum discussion.